Hey guys, Will from Around the Grounds here, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the mid-season table predictions for the EPL 21/22 season. We're going to be looking at all the teams and where they're placed currently. We're going to predict where they're going to finish based on who they play, based on the current form, and so on. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Alright, now, but before we start with the relegation teams, make sure you guys drop a like or subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and that'll help up the channel a lot. Alright, now coming in at 20th, I've gone for Watford, and this probably isn't unsurprising. I just think they've had a lot of managerial changes this season. Their form hasn't been good lately. They had a pretty good period like in the beginning of the season, towards the middle, but lately they haven't won in the last 5 at least. They've got the second worst goal difference in the entire league. They have some good players in Emmanuel Dennis and Josh King, but they haven't really been firing lately. But if they can get back to how they were mid-season, I'll give them a chance to avoid relegation, but at the moment I just can't see that, so I'm going to put them in 20th position. Alright guys, now at 19th I've gone with Burnley, and this isn't probably unsurprising. They've had quite a shocking year. They've only won once, the lowest out of any team by quite a margin, but yeah, they also haven't won in their last 5 games. Scoring is an issue for them. They've only scored 17 goals and 6 of those have been on Maxwell Cornet, who's been quite a revelation, probably the only positive for Burnley this season. They have the highest average age of any club in the EPL, and you can kind of see that because their performances are quite, I wouldn't say boring, but they just seem like they need some fresher, younger legs in there to help them push and get out of the relegation spot. But for this year, I can't see them getting out of relegation at the moment, so I'm going to put them in 19th. Alright guys, now in 18th, I've gone with Norwich City. Norwich, they started the year quite bad, but they picked it up towards the middle of the season, and even now they're doing not too bad. They've only lost 2 in the last 5, and they've got 2 wins in that period as well. They're scoring some more goals, which is a better sign, because they couldn't score many at the start of the year, but they still have the lowest score in the entire comp, with only 14 scored across 24 matches, so that's not a very good stat, and they want to improve on that. They've had a little golden period, as I said, but I just don't think that's going to continue, but just because they don't have the quality players that the other clubs above them have, or the money to spend on the players that the clubs above them have. So yeah, I'm going to just put them in 18th for that reason. Alright guys, now moving on to the team that I think will avoid relegation, and that is Brentford in 17th position. They had a wonderful start to the season, a lot of hype for the first season in the Premier League, but that's kind of died down of late. They have the worst form out of any team currently, and they have not won in quite a while. There's been some disruptions in the squad lately, like specifically Ivan Toney coming out and saying those things that he said about Brentford, whether he meant them or not, kind of distracted them a bit, and that's not what they need. But I think they have enough quality and talent and togetherness to be able to salvage and stay up for another season, so that's why I'm putting them in 17th position. Alright, now moving on to the next team, in 16th position, I've gone with Leeds United. I would put Leeds above any of the teams below them in terms of quality. I don't think they're a chance of being relegated, but they've been not in good form lately, and they've lost to some of the teams around them, which is going to hurt their chances of placing any higher than them, so that's why I'm going to put them into 16th position. Alright, now moving on to 15th position, a team that a lot of people thought might have the chance to get relegated this season, and that is Everton. They just signed Frank Lampard as their coach, and they've also brought in Donny van der Beek and Dele Alli from their rival club. After taking a 3-1 loss to Newcastle, they bounced back with a nice 3-0 win over Leeds United on their last game week. I think the signing of Frank Lampard is massive because they needed a change-up from their last manager, Rafa Benitez, who just wasn't simply doing enough for them. With the quality of players they brought in over the last transfer window, I can see Everton playing a bit better than they have been all season and start to be a bit more consistent and use that for next season, and I don't think they're going to get relegated, so that's why I have them in 15th position. Alright guys, now moving into 14th position, we've got the team that probably has moved the most from where they are currently in the table, and that is Newcastle. I just think their January transfers and signings have been quite good and quite strategic, as in like getting Chris Wood from their rivals Burnley. And now they've won 3 in a row and they've looked really good, and this momentum should help them carry on, and I think they're going to have quite a good end of the season, so that's why I put them in 14th position. Alright guys, now moving into 13th position, the teams from here on are probably a bit separated from the teams below them in the table, but with 13th position I've gone with Crystal Palace. They've been quite competitive all year. They've got some good results and some good players, like Conor Gallagher has just been out of this world this season, but they have not won in the last 5 games at least, and that's a bit worrying. And the last 2 games they have drawn to Norwich and Brentford respectively, which in both games you'd probably favour Crystal Palace to get the 3 points there, and I think that's a bit of an indication of where they're at, and I think that's probably going to continue for the rest of the season, because I think they kind of used all their energy at the start of the season and now they're sort of petering out a little bit, so that's why I put them in 13th position. Now moving on to 12th position. This one was a bit tricky and I really could have put this team a bit higher, and this is Southampton. They have played really good lately. Their last 3 games have been against Spurs, Manchester United and Manchester City, and they haven't even lost one of those games. So that shows that they're now picking up some consistency. They're being able to compete with the big teams, so I think they're going to finish the year very strong when they face some teams that they can, well, they're more likely to beat compared to those teams. The next 2 games are against Everton and Norwich, and based on what we've seen, they should get 6 points there, to be honest, and both of them are home games. So if you put that into consideration, Southampton could easily finish in the top 10 if they continue this form up. But I just think consistency is key, and yes, we have seen that recently, but historically I've not seen Southampton as a consistent team, but I'm ready for them to prove me wrong. So that is why I've put them in 12th position. Alright guys, now moving into the number 11, the team I think will finish 11th position, that is Aston Villa. After the signing of Steven Gerrard, they have been quite good. They've been getting some good results. However, they've only won 1 in the last 5, which is a bit worrying, as it seems like they're sort of returning to their old ways. But I think with Philip Coutinho and some other players, key players getting back into form, they're going to get some good results to the end of the year. The next 3 games are against Watford, Brighton and Southampton, and these games they can probably get quite a lot of points from if they play well enough, but this will be a key indication to see whether or not they'll finish the year well, or if they're going to continue their bad form that they have currently. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say they're going to finish in 11th position and have a decent end to the year. But guys, now moving on to 10th position, the team that is known as the draw specialists, and that is Brighton. They've had quite a consistent year so far. They've been quite competitive. They haven't conceded many goals. They've only conceded 23, which is really, really good. But in saying that, they've also sort of struggled to score goals compared to the teams around them and above them, which has probably been a detriment to them, because if they could score a few more goals, they'd be a lot higher in the league because their defense is quite good. They also just lost Dan Burn to Newcastle, which might be a bit of a hit. They haven't lost in the last 5 games at least, so their form is quite good currently. They have some tough games coming up with Man United, Liverpool and Man City in the next 6 games. So that is 3 tough games that if they can get a few points here and there, that'll help them stay in the top 10. But Brighton are a good team, and I think they're good enough to stay in the top 10, so that's why I put them in 10th position. Alright guys, now moving on to 9th position, I've gone with Leicester City. This might be a bit surprising, but I think Leicester are going to finish the year quite well. They've had an injury-plagued season the entire season, and yes, they've had bad form lately. Yes, they did lose 4-1 to Forest, which is quite embarrassing for the club. There's been talks of Brendan Rodgers getting removed, but I think once they get some players back and they start winning games that they shouldn't be tying or losing, you'll see the best of them, and I think they're going to end the year quite well. So I expect them to get a few more points here and there, and they've just had a few hard games with Liverpool and Spurs and West Ham recently. So yeah, I think they'll go on a bit of a run, and it'll be even better when Jamie Vardy returns and starts banging in some goals for them. But yeah, I think they'll finish in 9th position. Alright, 8th position guys, and now I've gone with Tottenham Hotspur. These guys are coming 8th at the moment, and they have a few games in hand, but their form of late hasn't been good. They've lost their last 3, and they're going to verse Manchester City next, who I don't think they stand a chance against Man City, so that'll be 4 losses in a row most likely. And a bit of a form slump. It's a bit worrying, because Anthony Conte, he came in, and he got some good results. He got the players fired up, but their defense lately has just been really leaking some goals, and it has not been quality. Yes, they have quality up front with Kane and Son, but if they can't defend well or their midfield isn't good enough, then these results are going to continue happening. So I don't think they're going to have a terrible end to the season. I just don't think they're going to have a really good finish to the season, so I think they're going to just finish in 8th and stay where they are. Alright, now moving on to 7th position, I've gone with Wolves. Wolves have been really good this season. They've had a really solid defense. They've only let in 17 goals, but they've struggled to also score goals. However, that seems to not be a problem because they've won 4 out of the last 5 games. And their last start against Tottenham, you saw them get 2 early goals, and I think most people would have just thought they're going to just win that game straight away, even though there's so long left in the game. You can just back Wolves' defense at the moment because they're that good. But they've got some tough games coming up against Leicester, Arsenal and West Ham in the next 3. So that'll be a really good test to see whether Wolves can challenge for a Champions League spot, or if they're going to finish where I think they're going to finish in about 7th position. So yeah, I'm willing to get proven wrong by them, but just based on their inability to score goals, I think against the bigger teams that will be able to score a goal here and there or more, that they're going to get a few more draws against them and not enough points to get into the Champions League spot. So that's why I put them in 7th position. Alright guys, now moving on to the team that I think will finish in 6th, and I've gone with Manchester United. Currently in 5th position, they have not lost in the last 5 games at least, and they've been playing decent football, but the consistency is what worries me. They have had really good first halves lately, but then they've gone on to draw the game and not have a very good second half performance, and I think Ralph Rangnick knows that, and he's trying to get his troops to do that. The next 3 games are against Brighton, Leeds and Watford, and I think if they want to challenge and get this Champions League spot that we know Manchester United historically should be getting, they need to win all 3 of these games, and they need to put in a very solid 90-minute performance in each one of these games. That'll restore some of the faith in the fans, because fans have been a bit here and there because their players haven't been playing up to their potential. I think Ronaldo really needs to step up and show his quality and leadership that we know he has, but that also comes down to the team giving him service, which is also a problem. But yeah, with that being said, I think they're going to finish in 6th position. Alright guys, now moving to the team that I think is going to finish 5th, and that is West Ham. They've had a really good season this year, but of late their form has kind of been dipping. They just drew to Leicester in a 2-2 draw that they only just scrapped in stoppage time. The game before that they beat Watford 1-0, and then they lost to Manchester United and Leeds United before that, so they've been a bit inconsistent of late, but I think they have a quality team. Antonio needs to start scoring more. I saw a stat the other day that he hasn't scored for like 18 games, where he's only scored once in 18 games, which is really not good enough for a team such as West Ham and their striker in particularly. I think if he finds some form and continue to get the results against bigger teams that they have during the season, I think they can get a Champions League spot, because David Moyes is a great manager and he's got that team working really well together. But based off their form as of late and the team that I think is actually going to finish 4th, who I think are playing better than West Ham currently, I'm going to put West Ham in 5th position. Right, now that team that I said that was going to finish in 4th position, that is Arsenal. And based on the start of the season that they had and the season they had last season, I don't think anyone really would have predicted Arsenal to get into the top 4 this season. They've won 3 out of the last 5 with a draw and a loss in between that time, but they've been quite consistent this year since the beginning period of the season, and there's just something that's telling me that because they got rid of someone like Aubameyang and they've got some really good youngsters coming through and the team culture is good, there's no selfish players or individual players, I just think there's something this season that tells me that they're going to finish 4th and they're going to surprise everyone and get a Champions League spot and continue to grow off that for the next few years. So that is why I put them in 4th position. Alright, now moving into the top 3 teams, and these teams it's pretty obvious probably what position I'm going to put all these teams in, just based on where they are now. And in 3rd place I've gone with Chelsea, and that's purely just due to them being better than all the teams below them, but they're not quite as good as Liverpool or Manchester City at the moment, and you can put that down to a lot of things, but I think the Lukaku drama during the year has probably put off their playing group quite a bit. They haven't played much lately because a lot of the games have been postponed or whatnot, but it's just the consistency for Chelsea is not there, and they've only won once in their last 5, so obviously they're a really quality team and they won the Champions League, but I don't see them finishing any higher than 3rd, but I also don't see them dropping below that, so that's why I've just kept them in 3rd position. Alright, now moving on to number 2, the team I think will finish 2nd, and that is Liverpool. They're only 9 points behind Manchester City, and they have a game in hand, and the next game is against Norwich City, so you expect that gap to close to 6 points. And if that can stay around 6 points, these two teams do verse each other later on in the season, and that is a massive game. If Liverpool can win that game, I'll give them a chance at winning the title, but if City wins that game, or even draws that game, City are just going to run away with the title. So Liverpool just need to be consistent and try stick with Man City as much as they can. They have quality players, they've got quality signings in January with Diaz, but yeah, we'll see what happens for the rest of the season, but for now, I'm just going to put them at number 2. So that now leaves us with the number 1 team I think who's going to win the Premier League this season, and that is Manchester City. They have a quality team, quality coach, they're very, very consistent. They won last year, and I just think they're just that good and they're going to win this year. Unless they majorly stuff up or drop some points here or there, I don't think Liverpool should be able to catch them, and historically City have been pretty good when they're leading and being front runners, and I think they're going to win the title 2 years in a row. Alright guys, so that is the end of the video. That is the end of my table predictions for the 21/22 EPL season. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and drop a comment on who you think is going to win the season or who you think is going to get relegated. I'd love to see what you guys think. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video and I'll catch you later. Take care.